everybody. Welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We have a good one for you. As always, we're going to be talking about a whole host of things. A massive show out in front for you. Been a while, I know, but we are back here in all standard traditional setup, which is very, very nice. First, though, we're talking about Omicron. The CDC has embraced a test-to-stay policy for schools, a sign of the new restrictions regime taking place. What will that look like? How justified is it? And how bad is it? Also, an update on the president's agenda. Biden conceding today the Build Back Better bill will not be passed this year. And AOC and other progressives not happy about that at all. Starting to realize what we pretty much all been saying on the left for months and months, or weeks and weeks now. They have been duped. Probably the most obvious thing in the world there. Amid a deadly tornado, text show that Amazon threatened to fire a driver. The packages were not delivered on time. That was a story in Kansas. Really, really horrific messages there for sure. It would be really, really, really just bad look for Amazon. There's new reporting by the Daily Poster, also in kind of 1-2 punch there, shows that the worker protection bill that could have helped was blocked by Amazon before this tornado disaster, where again at least 6 people have passed away. A UK court has ruled that Julian Assange can't be extradited to the US. Just days later, he had a stroke, a sign of possibly dangerous things to come, and Kashama Swan victorious in Seattle. Told you, we have a massive show today, so let's get right into it. We're starting with the Omicron variant as COVID. We're looking at what the CDC is going to be pushing people to do. So let's get into that. So start here in the New York Times. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said on Friday that unvaccinated students exposed to the coronavirus no longer need to miss school if they repeatedly test negative for the virus in the days after, allowing them to remain in class and school activities. So that is definitely a very, very good sign. A lot of people are going to be very, I think, appreciative of that, and a lot of people who, would be in some way skeptical of the vaccine, actually saying what is, for the first time, an acknowledgement of the facts here. I think that we can actually take a legitimate, chill pill almost and say that we are building a level through vaccinations, through herd immunity, through, natural antibodies or whatever. You have that ability to, kind of let people off the hook a little bit. And really, we're building up this kind of natural immunity as a society through all these various ways together. So this guidance can be called the test-to-stay protocol, would ease the burden on children who have been expected to stay home if a close contact test positive for the virus, and on parents who have had to scramble to retrieve children from school or find daycare. So, again, a lot of people not having access to, 1 or 2 vaccinations, pretty much, I'd say pretty much all people. If you haven't got the vaccine yet, that is a choice. But again, childcare, things like that. Very, I definitely don't think that, I'm very much support in this policy. Some schools have already been using it, even though the CDC has not previously endorsed it, citing lack of evidence. On Friday, the agency released studies from 2 counties, one in LA, the other Illinois, that effectively tested the test-to-stay protocol and said that it worked. So it's good news there for sure. We are just take a quick look at the numbers here. At this point, we're hovering around 124,413 cases today or yesterday. The 14-day change is plus 31. So yeah, we're definitely seeing a big spike over time here. And hovering around 1,200 deaths from COVID. And that's a 23% increase. And again, what we're looking for, again, the biggest questions here is what we were kind of understanding about Delta, first of all, and now we're kind of understanding about Omicron is how deadly is it? And I think that is really the thing that matters, because what I kind of feel like this is happening here is it kind of becomes closer and closer to the flu. It kind of becomes people just, in a certain way, saying, you know what, we'll get our vaccines, we'll get those booster shots. We're going to, we don't kind of want to stay at the restrictions, but, really life disrupting restrictions are going to become, I think, less and less the thing. And, more likely more and more vaccinations are going to become more and more the thing. To getting these kind of consistent boosters, it becomes much, much more endemic. But what I think is going to be really, really interesting is the effectiveness of these vaccines, and with the big amount of vaccine-resistant people in this country, how well that is going to work. Because, again, a lot of people also don't get their flu vaccines nowadays either. And for example, I got one this year and I just had the flu. So it is, it's it's all a very interesting situation with those pharmaceutical companies. I mean, we have Albert Bourla, my favorite, frequent person I have kind of attacked a bit on this show. He is now saying that we need like a fourth vaccine when the third vaccine they put out doesn't really give you that much more antibodies than if you just got two vaccines. So really what we have to do here is, I think as a culture, the real interesting thing is how much, socially, this kind of censorious impulse that is definitely there in our culture. When we see it with the kind of really kind of, jihadist behavior on social justice stuff, which is, a lot of times very, very ridiculous. I think a lot of that same impact, especially in the kind of same social circles and political circles, exists on the, the vaccinations and the variant and all that stuff. So what is going to be really, really interesting to see is how that impulse carries over long term. If we see is it going to be, are you going to be fired from your job or whatever if you say anything about vaccinations? I don't know if we're there at that point. It's going to be interesting to see. I think the stuff that, Trevor Noah said that we talked about on our last show is, it didn't seem to have hurt him too much, to be quite honest. It could be just because his show is, maybe not that big a deal, I don't know. But it does seem like, there is a bit of that impulse, but it's going to be wait and see, I think, to see how it sticks. In other news, Pfizer-BioNTech's low-dose shot fell short for children age 2 to just under age 5. A low dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine did not produce a potent immune response in children aged 2 to 5. The company announced a discouraging setback that threatens to keep the vaccine from younger children for longer than many parents had hoped. In ongoing clinical trials, the company tested 3 micrograms of the vaccine, 1/10 of the adult dose, in children 6 months to less than 5 years of age. After 2 doses, the children 6 months between 2 years produced an immune response that was comparable to the people aged 16 to 25, but those in between 2 and 5, the slightly older ones, did not. So maybe you want to make it to, 4 micrograms or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. The companies said they would now test a third low dose of the coronavirus vaccine in between, that 6 and 5 range, 6 months and 5 years range. But they do not plan to test a higher dose of the vaccine in children between 2 to 5. The goal here is to understand the potential of protection for the third dose. We are studying 3 micrograms at this time. In a conference call with investors and analysts on Friday, Catherine Jansen, Pfizer's head of vaccine research, said the company planned to seek authorization for a 3-dose series in children instead of the originally planned 2 doses. If the revised strategy works, we'd have consistent 3-dose vaccine approach for all ages. More vaccines, baby, let's go! That's a, you gotta have to look at that as a, come on. I mean, if you look, again, the financial press, if you want to know what actually goes on in society, is so underrated. Because I think the same lady was on CNBC, and they were like, yeah, you're going to love this. The quarterly, the annuity that this vaccine is going to provide. So you're going to have people pretty much forced to get this vaccine, forced to buy a product every single year. That's going to be great for the bottom line, that aspect there is very much present, and it is deeply, deeply concerning. We're going to continue, obviously, to stay right on this Omicron variant stuff, but we're going to move on to our next story. We have a interesting situation with Joe Biden in Build Back Better. He just came out and said it's not going to get passed this year. And frankly, the idea that this is ever going to get passed, you can put to bed right now, because it's just, it's really ridiculous. There is no leverage. There's no thing there's no thing that the moderates want that the progressives have and that Joe Biden has. They're perfectly happy to tank this bill, especially after they already passed the infrastructure bill, which Biden needed a win, freaking out after West Virginia, whatever. Now, a situation that we all saw coming, and is that, Manchin says, screw you. I don't want to do this socialist communist bill. It's going to hurt the people of West Virginia, mainly himself. So I'm not going to support it. And, he has that power. The Democrats gave him that power, and look at what we got. So, let's hear the quote here from Biden. It takes time to finalize these agreements. It's literally been half a freaking year. It's been half a year. It does not take that much time to finalize these agreements. And if it takes that much time, you're an awful politician who has no control over their own agenda or just does not care about it enough to actually pass. Like, and it could be a variety of different things. I think for certain Democrats, it's, they actually don't want this to pass because they feel way more similar to Joe Manchin than they want to say publicly. For Joe Biden, it could be that he just, doesn't have that much control over the process, or it could be, who knows what he's thinking. But what matters is what the reality is here, and that is that this bill is not going to pass because the progressives do not, or, the progressives and, people who want this bill to be passed, like Pelosi and Schumer, who are not progressive, earlier Thursday, said that they advance this work together over the days and weeks ahead. Senator Schumer and I are determined to see the bill successfully on the floor as early as possible. With the holidays approaching and a Senate likely to eager to leave town on Friday, however, a vote isn't likely until after New Year's Day. So that will not be passed this year. The statement's recognition that the president's team has so far, again, this is for, if you think so far isn't like an applicable term to use here, like it's ever gonna happen, like you may as well be believing in the you may as well be believing in the tooth fairy. Like, this is just ridiculous. Like, come on. In these discussions, Senator Manchin has reiterated his support for Build Back Better funding at the level of the framework plan I announced in September. But I believe that we will bridge our differences and advance the Build Back Better plan even in the face of fierce Republican opposition. We'll see how bad it is if they ever do come up with a deal. It's definitely not going to be something worth, but again, what incentive does Joe Manchin have to come up with a deal? He has literally there's no purpose. There's no point. He already has exactly what he wants, and that is that corporate giveaway initial bipartisan infrastructure bill passed. Like, that barely any Republicans, quote unquote, bipartisan, that very, very few Republicans voted for even in the first place. Because, and they the ones that did are now, again, already facing incredible pressure at home from their own district. So, again, it is, who knows what his motivation is, just not knowing what's going on, not caring about the agenda, thinking that this was some sort of just, ploy, something to put out there as kind of a PR battle to then later blame on someone like Joe Manchin when it does inevitably fail and you don't, really try hard enough to save it. That is, certainly possible. A lot of, reporting, I think, on that is really still to be done. There's a lot of ways that could go. Meanwhile, the question that I would like to see reported is, has Joe Manchin actually threatened, or has Joe Manchin actually been threatened by the White House with anything? Like, is there any sort of hardball tactic that they've been used at the point where they actually had leverage, or now at any point ever? Or has it just been Joe Manchin just getting, really nice tours of Joe Biden's house in Delaware? Like, because that seems to me that is all it's been. There's been no type of leverage, no type of threats. No, Bernie Sanders has done limited work as, the chairman of the Budget Committee, not the freaking president, for, what is supposed to be the Biden agenda here. But what really, really, really does, in a lot of ways, ring true out of all of this is there is a lack of effort being, put forth by the Democrats. And the Democrats, and especially the Democrat voters, the people who the Democrats want to vote for them in the fall, are not going to be swayed by the excuse that, oh, I'm sorry, Joe Manchin's just too mean. There's nothing we could do. Nothing we could do. And by the way, does Sinema even support this in the first place? I mean, has that even still been confirmed? AOC here tweeting about this. It is actually delusional to believe that. And by the way, credit to her. She was one of the few people in the House that actually voted no to pass this ridiculous bipartisan infrastructure bill. It only did pass, I think, with Republican support. But it does show you that, these people could have done a bit of a better job here. There's only certain, there's ways they could have stopped this. I don't know how capable AOC is of holding that whole progressive caucus together, but way, way, way too many people on the progressive side for, supposedly how outraged they were about Joe Biden, and about the low quality of this infrastructure bill and what the bipartisan bill and what Joe Manchin was doing and all that stuff. Way too many people were convinced by Joe Biden waltzing in there and being like, "Yo, I got him, man. Don't worry, I'll have a nice talk with him." Like that. The ability to not see through that, you have got to be, literally, again, it's equivalent to believing in the tooth fairy. So, but she is right here. Is it actually delusional to believe Dems can get reelected without acting on filibuster or student debt? Again, another broken promise there on student debt, not canceling it, and actually being like, you know what, we're going to start it right up as Biden plummets, loses support with the under kind of the 30-year-old demographic, which should be key for Democrat support. Biden breaking his Build Back Better promise, letting the child tax credit lapse. Again, when is that actually going to lapse? I'm very, very curious. The end of the year, wonderful. Love to see that. Gotta love it. But people want to butt Manchin everyone to death, but learned helplessness is not a disposition that inspires confidence or support. So again, learned helplessness is one way of putting it in the Democratic Party. Putting Manchin up there as a meat shield could be another way, but also, I think there is a certain, when I'm looking at learned helplessness here, I'm kind of looking at, Mama Bear, AOC, let's work within the system. Like, where is one of my biggest criticisms of AOC is I think, there is a very, I want Nancy Pelosi's office with the Sunrise Movement AOC back. Like, that is pretty much what I would say there. Is she has, again, still has a lot of potential, still has the ability to be that person, I definitely think, but maybe not specifically in this moment, and she has already missed a ton of critical opportunities to do that, and kind of just not understanding where her power comes from, and who has her back and who doesn't, and who acts like they have her back and really does not. But what really is clear here is AOC making a great point. The president has tools at his disposal. Leadership has tools at their disposal. If it really is 1 or 2 votes, Senate should force a vote on the Build Back Better bill. To secure votes for the bipartisan infrastructure bill, Biden himself came to the House progressives and told us he was putting his credibility on the line to deliver Build Back Better if the Congressional Progressive Caucus voted for the bipartisan infrastructure bill. They trusted him. I didn't think he could promise the Senate. He promised anyway. She was damn right, so huge credit to her for that. It's time for him to deliver. And you know what? Here's the tough political reality of the situation. Congressional Progressive Caucus had leverage. They had legitimate leverage. Joe Biden came into the House, again, charmed them, apparently, and personally Biden himself came to the House, told us he was putting his credibility on the line to deliver BBB if the CPC voted BIF. Credit to you if you can put all those letters together. But it didn't happen. Biden came in either, kind of unintentionally or intentionally lied. But the real question is, that happened. He can get away with it. He could have faced a lot of political consequences, but there won't be coming from the Congressional Progressive Caucus. What are they going to do about it? The answer is probably not that much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have so many fun things to report here at the Spencer Walsh Radio Network that you're going to want to tune into. First and foremost, we have Newsflash, our flagship show, which will be on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, wherever you get your podcast, of course. And now, for the first time ever, we have the Spencer Walsh Show in a rare collaboration and syndication with WMFO 91.5 in Somerville and Medford. It'll be on the air there first and live, 1 to 2 p.m. every single Monday. And from there, we'll put it on SD Run podcast feed within 24 hours. That's the lineup. Just keep listening to the Spencer Walsh Radio Network, wherever you get your podcasts. And we are, of course, going to make some slight modifications, actually, to that schedule for the holiday season. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, on our pre-summer schedule for Newsflash, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, all for the next month. And, of course, Hidden History will be coming back, too. That date, though, will be a little bit different. and it will be on Tuesday. So we're going to have Hidden History Tuesdays, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We will have Newsflash, and we may try to do maybe 1 or 2 per week, depending on how the week is. But yeah, Hidden History will be coming back on Tuesdays, possibly a Thursday show once or twice as well. But yeah, a lot more content coming your way to keep you satisfied through the holiday season. All right, let's get into our next story here. So, of course, we are still talking about that, or actually, this is actually the first time we've actually been able to talk about this here on on Newsflash, which is the really, really tragic tornado that struck that town in Illinois, especially specifically with that Amazon building that was destroyed, and 6 people died. 6 workers again crushed to death when the warehouse that was already being investigated for a possible building code violation collapsed, exemplifying the long track record of the company prioritizing profits over people. So yeah, again, there's really damning information coming out about this, and really Amazon's conduct about this. One person who died texted his wife, "Amazon won't let us leave. I'll come home after the storm." And of course, tragically, he never did. And this is new here from Common Dreams just today. So this is at an Amazon building, and it emerged on Friday when a delivery driver shared records of a conversation she had with the boss, which revealed that the e-commerce giant threatened to fire her if she didn't keep delivering packages, even as tornado sirens blared. Radio's been going off, the driver told her supervisor, less than an hour and a half before a twister hit one of Amazon's warehouses in Edwardsville, in a text message obtained by Bloomberg News. "Keep delivering," her boss replied. "We can't just call people back for a warning unless Amazon tells us to." So again, this is, it's not necessarily the boss's fault, because, if she does that, she'll probably get fired too, because really what it is all done is run by an algorithm. They have essentially just and what is the algorithm telling them to do? Keep people delivering. It's not that bad. Just a warning. Just keep going. And, the people at the top and the people who matter are completely, tied to and completely behind that algorithm making decisions, because it is programmed to make them the most money possible. Amazon was already in hot water again for forcing employees to attend their shifts last Friday, despite the impending storm, and refusing them to let them leave before a catastrophe struck. And this is kind of in a way worse than the Triangle Shirtwaist fire, because it was a natural event. Like, they could see it coming in the sky and were like, keep going. You can't leave. Like, that is just beyond evil. It's just beyond evil. It is really, really rough. So new evidence that Amazon also pressured delivery drivers to work through a tornado instead of immediately helping them obtain safe shelter has only increased the amount of contempt that many people have for one of the world's most powerful corporations. More details emerge about the lives put in danger by Amazon's dehumanization of workers and its gigantic and chaotic bureaucracy, said Athena Coalition, a nonprofit made up of more than 50 organizations that are building democratic power to stand up to Amazon's abuse of our communities. It is. Some of our Amazon family has passed away because of the storm. It is really, really just psychotic. So she's saying, just, radio's been going off. The bosses keep delivering. Just relaying it in case y'all didn't hear it over here. Tornado alarms are going off over here. Just keep delivering for now is the response. We have to wait for word from Amazon if we need to bring people back. The decision is ultimately up to them. I'll let you know if the situation changes at all. I'm talking with them now about it. Shelter in place for now. Just got word from Amazon. Give it about 20 minutes, and continue as normal. I will let you know if that changes. How about for my own personal safety, I'm going to head back. Having alarms going off next to me and nothing but locked building around me isn't sheltering in place. That is waiting to turn this van into my casket. Hour left of delivery time, and if you look at the radar, the worst of the storm is going to be right on top of me in 30 minutes. It was actual siren, she writes. And the boss says, if you decide to come back, that choice is yours. But I can tell you it won't be viewed as for your own safety. The safest practice is to stay exactly where you are, where she just said the storm is going to be in 30 minutes. Jesus Christ. Will be viewed as refusing your route, which will ultimately end with you not having a job come tomorrow morning. The sirens are just a warning. Jesus Christ. I'm literally stuck in this damn van without a... Okay, so maybe it is the boss's fault. Okay, that is pretty fucking bad. Jesus Christ. that is brutal. Amazon is saying shelter in place. I will let you know when they say anything else to me. You need shelter in place. The wind just came through and ripped through the warehouse and ripped the RTS garage door and broke it. So even if you got back here, you can't get in the building. You need to stop and shelter in place. So yeah, Jesus, really psychotic stuff. Yeah, it's like it's a century of workplace safety laws never happened. Amazon, yeah, just a powerful enough corporation that they don't need to really worry about that. And here is why. This is from the Daily Poster. In the months before workers were reportedly barred from abandoning their job site and threatened with termination if they fled this weekend's deadly tornadoes, corporate lobbying groups were fighting legislation to prohibit retribution against employees who seek to leave work out of fear for their safety. Amazon, which owns a warehouse where several workers were killed, and staffing firms have linked to corporate lobbying groups that have been opposing the legislation, which remains stalled. NBC News reported Monday that a Kentucky candle factory workers were told by superiors they could be fired if they fled their workplace as a powerful storm approached. And, the same thing here happened in Amazon. At least 8 workers were subsequently killed by the Mayfield Consumer Products candle factory in Kentucky, while 6 workers were killed in the Illinois disaster in Amazon. So it's just like, Amazon's not even the only one. Like, this is just probably bad bosses. They are everywhere, folks. Yeah, they've been plagued by pretty deadly cataclysms and allegations of hazardous conditions, to say the least. It can't control weather, the company, but it can definitely kind of adjust its expectations and, just how it cares and treats about, its staff and workers and things like that. So yeah, tornadoes ripped through 6 states, and it can adjust expectations. It's already been, again, Amazon can't control the weather, but it can't also get people out of the damn building and also have a building that may be a little bit more structurally sound during a tornado, which again was already being investigated for building code violations. As in most other states, corporate interests have preserved at-will employment laws in both Kentucky and Illinois that allow employers to fire workers for no cause. But earlier this year, Illinois lawmakers introduced legislation to protect workers from such firings unless an employer had just cause for a termination. So again, the idea that, the employer can just fire you for no reason, that just exists commonly throughout America. Just, again, horrific state of affairs in the richest country in the history of the world. The Illinois bill, called the Illinois Employee Security Act, explicitly states that a just cause for firing employees does not include an employee's refusal to work under conditions that an employee reasonably believes would expose him or her or other employees or the public to an unreasonable health or safety risk. The legislation, which now have 15 sponsors, would join Illinois with Montana as the only two states with a just cause law. That is crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. The bill was criticized by the powerful Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce, according to the Chicago Sun-Times, and was formally opposed by the Illinois Chamber of Commerce, and both organizations list Amazon as a member. Amazon has also disclosed donating last year to the Illinois Retail Merchants Association, another organization opposing the measure, according to state records. So that is pretty much how this whole sausage is made. And I don't know how much, we saw with the candle making factory, Amazon is not the only business with this impulse, so it could be if it's a very common business thing. But again, this shows you what is going on. Like, why would they even care? The algorithm probably has like a risk reward, legal risk calculator built in. And I doubt, really highly doubt that the legal risk is, sufficiently high enough for Amazon. Like, this is all just run by complete machines that are just so like 100% focused and just keeping people in the right position for just the right amount of time, just to squeeze that little bit more out of them, even if they're literally about to die. And then when they get trouble and the government tries its kind of natural democratic response, they pay off the people to stop the bill from happening. Like, that is just how screwed up and kind of corporatized our democracy is today.
Buckingham Palace has announced the death of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh.
It's news flash.
Keep that sick beat going, but some bad news coming from the United Kingdom. Julian Assange, UK court has ruled he can be extradited to the U.S. A British court ruled on Friday that Julian Assange could be extradited to the U.S. to face charges that could result in decades of jail time, reversing a lower court decision in the long-running case against the embattled WikiLeaks founder. So again, this podcast, in case for just get it out of the way right now, this podcast, the Spencer Walsh Radio Network, is 1,000% free Assange. Give him the Presidential Medal of Freedom, in my opinion, for the work that he has done and, incredible risk that he has taken. And, Chelsea Manning would be there in the same boat. And again, the only reason why this is happening, again, is because of what Assange revealed and the threat that he represents. And it is war crimes. It is war crimes of the highest order and things that, American people do not know about, because what they know about Assange is that he's, slimy, he's associated with the Russians, that's probably really what you think if you're a lib. And, most people probably don't even know who he is. And that is very, very much by design. If you ever want to look up the, I don't, really think I need to get into the full detail of it here. But, so again, without, the things that she revealed, Chelsea Manning and Julian Assange revealed, should make them heroes up and down this country, and every single military official that said a bad word about them reviled up and down this country. Manning and WikiLeaks released multiple accounts and even videos of U.S. airstrikes that killed civilians. The information they disclosed led watchdogs to estimate that American armed forces were responsible for over 10,000 more civilian deaths they had first officially acknowledged. As a whole, the leaks showed the wars were not only going much worse than the government led the populace to believe, but the scope of the humanitarian disaster was larger as well. So, again, Obama was probably the only really good president on this, because, again, one of the things that Biden did is just pick up exactly where he left off and kind of continue this prosecution. And not only has Manning been prosecuted and pardoned by Obama, but I think, Trump also did try and go after her, but I believe she's out of jail now, which is very, very good. But, Biden picks up right exactly where Trump left off, and, is now going to do a thing that probably, which was really rare and something the Obama administration never wanted to do, is try and prosecute Assange. Because what Assange is pretty much doing is acting as the publisher of classified information, which, if you use your brain for about 2 seconds, you realize the kind of threat that it poses to journalism because of, because of the fact that that happens all the time. There has been leaks, there's been things published, as famous as far back as the Pentagon Papers. That is kind of what the Supreme Court precedent, New York Times. I think it's the people, or the government versus the New York Times. It was the New York Times problem, as Obama called it, which is that, journalists are allowed to publish classified information if it's in the public interest. And that is what is going on here. But, Assange, what they're trying to do is not call him a publisher. They're trying to call him, an espionagist. I don't know if that's a word, but, terrorist, someone who's, they got him pretty much under the Espionage Act. And to give you a little bit more about, what that's been like for him, Stella Morris, the fiancée of Julian Assange, reiterated demands for his freedom after she revealed Saturday that the WikiLeaks founder suffered a mini stroke in October, which is the day of the High Court appeal hearing on October 27th. She shared a new Daily Mail report in which she put the blame for the event on the constant chess game, battle after battle, the extreme stress that Assange has been imprisoned in a maximum security prison in London since 2019 and continues to endure this as the U.S. government seeks to extradite and prosecute him under the Espionage Act for publishing classified information that exposed American war crimes. It must have been horrendous hearing a high court appeal in which you can't participate, which is discussing your mental health and your risk of suicide, and which the U.S. is arguing you're making it all up, said Morris, who has 2 young children with Assange. The U.S. plays dirty every step of the way. It's a war of attrition, she told the outlet. We can see from the fact he suffers a mini stroke and is having a dangerous impact on him. And, his health's already deteriorated. His mental health is really, really bad. That's a big reason why they had to appeal the extradition attempt. But really, this is just, devastating stuff. So on October 27th, the first day of the U.S. government's appeal hearing, Assange suffered a stroke. He was unwell. The prison still made him go to the prison video room. Several journalists, including me, following the court's video feed, saw him and reported on how unwell he looked. So, yeah, again, he just had a stroke. That's why. The statements of Stella Morris, Assange's fiancée, his family and friends and legal team were just not melodramatic tall tales. And, you know, even the high court here upheld the judge's conclusions, and the Biden DOJ is pushing him further and further towards death. According to the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Niels Meltzer, who's previously sounded the alarm on Assange's treatment, he said the news of the stroke should come as no surprise. As we warned after examining him, unless he relieved of constant pressure of isolation, arbitrariness, and persecution, his health would enter a downward spiral, endangering his life. The UK, the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture is literally torturing him to death. Assange is clearly not medically fit to attend his own trial through video link. How can they even discuss whether he's fit to be exposed to a show trial in the U.S., a country that refuses to prosecute its torturers and war criminals, but persecutes whistleblowers and journalists? Couldn't have said that better myself. We're going to be following that Assange story for you very, very closely. It's huge implications on just, justice and morality, as well as the future of journalism here in the United States. So we will be, it's not often we get to do this, but it is about time to, finally celebrate the big victory of Kshama Sawant, up for recall election by the biggest corporate forces in the country, emerges victorious. Kshama Sawant holding off the recall in Seattle. Big news for the left. She says, we have defeated big business and the right wing in their attempt to push us. Huge deal here. Very close. Just a 310 vote victory. She's done that stuff before, folks. She is quite incredible. The only socialist alternative lawmaker in the nation, called it part of the nationwide backlash by billionaires and big business targeting lawmakers and others for fighting for social justice and working people. We have won 3 elections, and we have now defeated this recall, Sawant said during a Thursday interview for the Status Quo podcast. We defeated big business and the right wing in their attempt to use trumped-up charges against me personally in order to push back against the success of the working-class movements in Seattle. Yeah, it is really interesting to see what, this, to me, I think what this represents is, this is a vision of what politics kind of could be and should be at a very small level. Turnout was around 53%, almost matching a 55% level that was for the general election last year. Sawant supporters utilized an array of get-out-the-vote tactics, including pop-up tents where ballots were printed to reach voters. So, again, this is not stuff you'll see like the Democratic or Republican Party do. They have the big money funding operations that are very much out of touch with the people. Like, this is really the way working class politics is done right. And she has been doing this so well on her own for so long, and is really incredible, if unsurprising, just to kind of step back and marvel at the machine of organization and power that she's built. Incredible stuff. So, the Sawant was the longest tenured Seattle council member and the first ever to face a recall. She was accused of malfeasance, and violation of the oath of office. Her supporters, however, argue that Sawant's success of fighting for working class people and against billionaires and big business, including Amazon and Microsoft, two of the most powerful industries, again, with headquarters in Seattle, or companies with headquarters in Seattle. Sawant was instrumental in making Seattle the first major city to enact a 15-hour minimum wage. She also spearheaded the successful push for the so-called Amazon tax on large corporations and the fight for robust tenants' protections, including free legal aid for people facing eviction and a renter's bill of rights. Absolutely been instrumental in kind of just holding that Democratic city council in Seattle by the balls and actually forcing them to do real change here. So really cool stuff there. So the ruling class of the United States is afraid of these kind of movements, Sawant told Sheridan. So we should not be surprised by the reaction, and the recall against us was part of that last reaction. Was at least part of that reaction. The Socialist Council member also said that it's no coincidence that 2 of the 3 reasons given for the recall related to my participation in and solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. The recall against my office is part of that nationwide backlash against the incredible movement that happened last year with 26 million American people, especially young people, marching the streets in multiracial working class solidarity against police repression, against racism, and against oppression, she said. Again, huge congratulations to Kshama Sawant, victorious in Seattle, making every socialist, leftist, any person with good sense happy all over the country. All right, we're going to be back on Monday with more Newsflash.